Let us start Docker. Docker RMI. I'm just cleaning up everything. First the container. Docker RM 453 and then Docker RMI 12. Right, done. So now let us begin with another new concept called port forwarding. Port forwarding concept is very important. That's a base for how you provide application access to end users in other Kubernetes container orchestration tools as well. Means this is the basic concept you should know to understand those concepts further. So let me talk about this port forwarding. Suppose this is your EC2 instance, right? This is your EC2 instance and you have a Docker container running in here. This is your Docker container. And this is your EC2 instance, means your Docker host. So this is your container C1 and that too, this is an Nginx container. Okay, already official like Ubuntu, Nginx, all of these are available. So this is your Nginx container. Nginx is running inside. And this is running on port 80 of this container. See, every container, whenever a container is created, every container will be assigned with some IP address. It will be assigned with some IP address, like IP address of container C1 colon 80. If you do this, you will access Nginx, right? This is how you can access Nginx. But can you access this Nginx on the host machine? Is that possible? Meaning, let's suppose
No.
you hit this EC2. EC2 instance has got some IP. If you hit this 80, can you access Nginx? Do you think so?
No, we cannot.
Why we cannot?
Because port number is not like this engine is running inside the host. So this port number is not exposed for the outside world.
This is running inside the container. This cannot be accessed on the host because let's say your host network is a different network, right? Like it's a network one. This containers will be in a separate network called network 2. I'm just writing network 1, network 2 to tell you that they were in different network. Your containers will be always running in a secured, isolated, private network.
We lost you, Preethi. Your voice.
Am I
Your
audible?
voice is.
Am I audible?
Preethi, can you repeat? Your voice is not clear.
Your voice is not
Lost
clear,
you.
Preethi.
Can you please repeat from the point where container is inside the
Your
EC2?
voice is breaking. We lost it actually.
Am I audible now? Am I audible?
Preethi, can you hear us? Hello?
Am I audible? Hello? Can you all hear me? Am I audible now? Hello? Okay, voice is breaking. Okay. How is it now? Is it okay now? Is it better?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, it is much better.
Okay, okay. I'm sharing my screen. Can you all see the screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm saying is your EC2 instance, like this is your EC2 instance, and let's suppose a container is running on your EC2 instance. And the container is running on like Nginx is running inside the container on port 80. I'm asking, can you access this Nginx from the host, from EC2? It's not possible, right? Because your EC2 instance will be in a separate network. Your container will be in a separate network. Always containers will be running in a separate, private, isolated network for security reasons. Means whatever data available, whatever services running inside the container cannot be accessed from the host by default. Understood? Then what you should do? Then let's say this is a front end I want to access. How to do this? You can do port forwarding or port mapping. Means forward this port 80 to some port on the host. Like let's say this port 80 is forwarded to port 90. Let's some port, okay, some random port it could be. So if you do this kind of port mapping or port forwarding, or it's called port exposing, so that whatever content data available on port 80 can be accessible on this port, not the remaining ports, not all other contents. Because let's imagine this container is having some data, it is also having a database and it's having a front end. Front end may be accessible, but still database cannot be accessible because you open only that particular port. Got it? Understood? Am I audible at least?
Yes,
Yes.
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 So understood.
Yes, yes.
Is it possible to give a gist once again? I'm sorry.
What I'm saying is anything in the container cannot be accessed from the host. Like if Nginx is running inside the container, you access it by hitting the IP address of the container on 80. But you can't access that way from the host, because your host will be in a separate network, your containers will be in a separate network. Then how do you access it? You can do port mapping or port forwarding. Means only that particular port can be forwarded or accessible.
Okay.
Sir, after port forwarding or port mapping, what is next? Like, will that container work with the new port number, or it is accessible through EC2 VM IP also?
It is accessible through the other IP also, EC2 IP also.
Okay.
Let me start a container. Docker run minus ITD Nginx. There is official Nginx image available on Docker Hub. If you go to hub.docker.com, here you have Nginx available. Okay, this is Nginx, right? Where web server runs on port 80. You have nothing to do with it. I'm just running this. So because it's not there locally, it will pull. And whenever container is created, every container will be assigned with some IP address. So if you see the images list now, you can see the image. Also, you can see the container. Right? This is your image and this is your container. Here you can see just it's on port 80. So I want to access Nginx from the container first. So how do you get the IP address? Docker inspect container ID or name. Please keep muted, everyone. Please keep muted, everyone. I'm inspecting the container. Okay, when you inspect, it will show you a lot of information of the container in the form of JSON. See, lot of information will be there. Okay, including the ports, mount points, and so on. Here, if you see, this is the IP address of the container. So if I hit this, yes, you can see Nginx. Do you see the Nginx? Right? So you can see Nginx running over there. A Docker PS. And here is the Nginx. You can see Docker images and the Nginx is running over there. Now, okay, fine. Can I access from the EC2 IP as well? Like this machine's IP address is just one. Can I do this? Obviously, no. For the reason your host is in a different network, your containers are in a different network. So if you want to access this way, what you have to do? Whenever you start a container like this, I started container like this. You have to start with the port forwarding enabled like this. Okay, then you see the difference. Docker images, Docker PS, yeah. Earlier, there is no port forwarding, so this is on. But now, because whenever you do Docker run, new container will be created and say 80 is forwarded to 32768. If you go into this container and get the IP, obviously we'll see. But let's see from the host. This is the host IP, right? On which port you should see? 32768. Also, for this to work, what you should do? Security groups inbound 32768. Okay, so if you just come back here, right? That's your Nginx. Do you see that? Also, you can access it from here on the browser, like with the public IP on port 32768. Do you mean that Nginx is installed on this EC2 instance? Where is Nginx installed and running?
Container.
Inside the container, but you can access through the port forwarding. This is called port forwarding or port exposing or port mapping, whatever you call it. This is the underlying basic concept of how you expose your application to the external world going forward. Am I clear?
The port is randomly generated one or
Is this
given
much
as
clear
minus
for
two?
all of you? I'll come to your question in a while. Is this much clear for everyone?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is no
So
forwarding. This
you,
is
you
no
created one more time and then it automatically forwarded to that port.
correct.
Okay.
There's
And there
a
is no any special command used for port forwarding. You just created one more time and it automatically randomly allocated the port if I'm not
correct
just to be on the same page. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, got it.
This is done without port forwarding, means I haven't used -p flag. Here I have used -p flag where it has forwarded to a random port. This is how. So port forwarding should be done whenever you create a new container. Later on, you can't do port forwarding. Means always port forwarding should be done with a run command. Whenever you create new container, you have to do this, and this is how it's port forwarded. Obviously, inside the container, you can see also I'm inspecting again 660. So here, if you just does the IP and if you scroll up, it's not port forwarded, right? Do you see that JSON TCP AT TCP null means it's not port forwarded. Let's inspect the other one. Docker inspect 027. Do you see after port forwarding? And that's another way to check if it is port forwarded or not. Or you can check with the PS command. You see here, these are the different ways. And port forwarding should be done whenever you create a new container using P flag. Right? So this is the port forwarding and it's called free port forwarding. Okay, you also have binding port forwarding. Docker run -itd small p. This is called binding port forwarding. Small p, first host port. On which port of the host you want to access? I want to access on this port. 80 Nginx. Right? So this is the second container and this is the third container. So this is what you have. So if I access this, it should be, but what we should do for this to work? Right? Also, you can see that. Like same thing, I'm just checking from the browser. Curl command is a Linux command which will show you content of the browser in the CLI. See, this is coming from one container. This is coming from another container. On the EC2 instance, I can access it on two ports. This is free port forwarding. Okay, this is binding port forwarding. The Nginx is not at all installed on my system. I am accessing this from one container, this one from another. This is the beauty of port forwarding. If you need any services, let's say this is my development machine, you don't need to install anything directly on the server. You can access it from the host machines. Are we good? Are we clear?
Yes.
Any questions? Anything now? Please ask me. Some of you are asking something. Still, if you have questions, let me know. This is the port forwarding concept. You start when you start a container. And these should be documented in the Docker file as well during the creation of your image. We'll talk about the creation of the image in the coming up classes. So this will also help you. Okay. Two port running same application, says Rohit. Yes, Rohit. Is the application installed on the EC2 instance? That's what you have to understand. Can I proceed?
Binding is giving the port number manually, but the other one is getting allocated automatically.
Yes, that's called free port forwarding. See, this is binding port forwarding, where you choose your host port. Means you may have specific requirement. I should see this on a specific port of my EC2 or my host. So this is binding
Okay.
port forwarding. Free port forwarding means you don't mention the port, it chooses a random port. That's with capital P.
Okay, small p.
This is free port, this is binding port.
Okay.
Host
Thank
port,
you.
container port is the syntax. This is without no port forwarding. I mean, without port forwarding.
Why it is difference between capital P and small p?
Sorry, why it is?
Difference between capital P and small p.
Why it is difference means? If you use capital P, it's for free port forwarding. You don't need to mention the port. It will forward to a port of its choice. Like it forwarded to 32768. This is small p is you are choosing to which port it has to forward.
Okay.
Okay. Then let's talk about something called Docker volumes. Again, this is my EC2 instance. I have some container with it, right? So in this container, let's say some logs are generated in this path, /logs. Okay. And on EC2 instance, it might be, let's say, like let's suppose it's running. Okay, on EC2 instance, I have this container running. Once I have some data in /logs. What is this container is gone or lost? All these log files will be lost, which I want to refer at a later point of time, right? So to avoid this, to have some backup of your container data, what you can do is you will attach it to the volume. Volumes are like mount points in Linux. You attach these logs to some path on the host. Okay, on the host, it might be under var lib. This is the default. That's a home directory of Docker. Var lib Docker volumes. You can create volume is nothing but a data directory like volume 1. So this will be mapped to this path. So even though container is gone, you will see the same data here. That's how you take backup of your container data. It might be a log file, or else in this container var file may be generated, or in this container some test cases may be executed. You want to backup of those test cases. This is how you do. So these volumes are very much helpful, not only to for backup, also to share the data. For to back up the data, to share the data, this is helpful. Share the data in the sense, let's suppose another example. Let's say on the host machine in this path, I have placed some var file. I want to copy here and test it. Maybe that's for a temporary test container, right? How do you copy and test it? Correct? So that is another thing, like to share the data, to back up the data. In simple, I can say for data persistency. Data persistency. These volumes are helpful. Volume is nothing but another folder, like another directory, data directory. But this data directory is not just a not just a directory in the normal file system of the server. This is maintained and managed by Docker daemon. That's why, see, it's always in under var lib Docker volumes. If you want to have backup from multiple containers, or else if you want to share some file to all the containers, volumes are the best approach. Are we good?
The volumes is persistent.
Hmm?
Volumes are provided persistent storage.
Yes. Volumes provide persistency for your container data. Right? These are volumes, and yeah. Now there are other ways to take backup as well. We'll talk about them. Okay, let's get into this. So let us see how this is going to work. Let's get onto our machine, and here first you can see the volumes. Docker volume ls. These are Docker objects. So Docker volume ls, no volumes were there. Okay, now you can create a volume. Docker volume, create volume 1. So Docker volume ls. Okay. Docker volume inspect volume 1. Right? If you see, this is the volume. This is where you have the data. Now you can just go here. Right? I have created it. Of course, in that volume 1, there'll be underscore data. Okay. Automatically created. That's a default behavior. And yeah, you don't have any files here. But let's suppose I want to attach this volume to a container. Again, remember, volume should be attached when you create a new container. Later on, you can't attach. So how do you do that? Docker run -itd nginx. This one you all of you know, right? Let's say I will add name to the container C1. And to attach the volume, there is a V flag -v volume 1. And then the path inside the container, whichever you want to map. You may use some existing folder, or else you may want to create a new folder and attach it. This is also possible. So, okay. So this is C1. This is new logs. And this is volume 1. Volume 1 will be mapped to new logs. Whatever data in new logs can be seen here and vice versa. This is what happens when you run this. Okay, let us run. Also, let me do attach mode so that I can go inside and see immediately whether new logs is created or not. Oh, sorry, I run Nginx. Nginx process takes some time. Let me go with Ubuntu. So Ubuntu is downloaded and it's pulling the image because we don't have the image. See, something wrong. Error, oh, C1 is already there. Okay, let me clean up anyway. Docker rm -f C1. Docker ps -a. Let me clean up all of this. All are running. So we should do force remove 60f 02766. Clean. And now let me run. Ubuntu. See, I got the shell. I should have new logs automatically created. Do you see? And if you go inside, I don't have anything because nothing is on volume as well. This is a new folder. Maybe some logs may be generated here. Some var files may be generated here. I'm creating a dummy file, assuming it's something generated in the container. And I'm placing something like from, right? And so that's it. Okay. So that's all. Just come out of this container. How to come out of this container?
Control P, Control Q.
Right? Control P, Control Q if you want to keep it running, or else exit if you want to close it. Anything is fine. I'm back into the volume directory. Now, do you see that? How is that file appeared here? Right? So that's what is your backup. Even though container is gone, you can see that. But before that, let me create some file here as well. File2.txt. I am from host file2.txt. Okay, here are the files. Now, when you check onto the container, Let's get inside the container. You can do docker attach, or else you can also do this. Docker exec minus IT, container name is C1, bin bash. What is this bin bash? Bin bash will help you get the shell. Exec minus IT is not running. Okay, it's not running. First, you have to start it. Correct? You can't attach without starting. First start it, then attach. Now go to new logs. You should see the second file. Right? Yeah. Clear, everyone?
Yes, please. Yeah.
So this is not like this is how you have a backup of your container. This is one way to have the backup. Anything, even though this container is gone, now I'm removing this container forcibly. Docker rm minus fc1. Okay, container is no more, but you still have the data. Do you see that? That's what is data persistency of your containers. And what is the use? Later on, I could attach to any other container like docker run minus IT. Let's say name is C2 and minus V. The same volume can be attached later on some other folder, let's say my logs, Ubuntu, right? So if you see there should be a my logs, you have the data, right? Conceptually, this is how it works. The practical usage I'll show you. Understood the concept, everyone? This is the best way of having a backup or data persistency of your containers through volumes. Okay, let's suppose I created a container, docker run minus IT, name is C3. I did not attach the volume and I started it. Okay, I went here, I'm creating some file, file3.txt, and I'm saying I'm from C3, let's say. Okay. Fine, I have this file created on the root. I forgot to attach the volume. I came out. Now, if I want to get this data, how is it possible? Let's say I want this file, but I did not attach the volume and I create the container. Right? In that case, you can explicitly copy, you can using Docker CP. This is very less used, but let me show you Docker CP and the source. What is the source? From where do I want to copy? C3 and the file location. This is the file I want to copy into, let's say, TMP folder of the host machine. Now, if you go to TMP, yeah, do you see there file 3? Right? Correct? That's how you can copy. And there is here another file date.txt. Let's suppose I want to copy this file to the container. Same, Docker CP, what is the source? Host machine, the path of the file. I'm in the same path, so I can directly say date.txt into C3 container in the root path with the same name. That's all. Now go inside the container. How do you go inside? First start it, then docker attach or docker exec minus IT C3 bin bash means execute bin bash in the C3. You get the shell. Date.txt is there. Right? That's how you can copy from the container to host or from the host to the container. This is through Docker CP command. If you missed creating container, this is how you can do. Have you noticed any difference between volume and CP command? What is the difference?
Data is automatically copied in volume.
It is like a sync, right? If you map the directories, data will be automatically in sync. But the CP, you have to explicitly copy whatever files. Folder also you can copy recursively, all the content of the folder will be copied. But you have to do this like explicitly. It's not automatically updating the data. That's the difference between volumes and the copy command. In reality, we always use volumes. I haven't ever used CP command, but just have some idea.
If I have to copy all the files, here you copied just date.txt, right?
Hmm.
So if I have to copy all the files, do I have to put
Folder
some
name.
star or some?
Put
So
the
folder name.
TMP, Docker CP / TMP. /TMP means it's a folder. TMP folder should be copied and all the data inside it will be copied recursively.
Okay, Preethi, thank you.
So this is about CP command and yeah. This is about volumes under CP, and there is another way. See, volume means always it is under var lib docker volume, right? This is always under this path, var lib docker volumes. But what if, let's say, I have some data in a random path like TMP or somewhere on the system, right? How to attach it as a volume? Is it possible or only this fixed path? This random path is also possible. Same command. Instead of this volume 1, you put the particular path, absolute path, complete path you put here. Okay, but that is called bind mounts. That's not volume, that's called bind mount. Am I making sense? You put any random path, it's called bind mounts. That is also possible. Same command. Instead of volume 1, you put the complete random path whichever you want to back up to. Sorry, it's a bind mounts. Bind mounts are also a way to have data backup, but bind mounts are not as efficient as volumes because see, volumes are managed and maintained by Docker daemon. That's not the case with bind mounts. It's a file system on the server. So it provides data persistency, but we can't expect the efficiency as volumes does. So for assured data persistency, better you go with volumes. But at times, suppose you have some data on a random path, you want to share it to container, you may do this. So volumes are the ones we use almost every time. Volumes have the real use cases like having a backup of your containers, like database containers. Even your Jenkins container should have a data backup. So let's go for an example now. I have shown you the things with the sample files, right? Let's see with the real example. By now, you know, we have installed Jenkins on the server directly, correct? And this is the home directory of your Jenkins, varlib Jenkins. You see all the Jenkins data. If you want to have your Jenkins high availability and backup, this is the folder you will take backup of. Means even though this Jenkins server is lost or crashed, you want to see the same pipelines, you want the same plugins, right? So you should take backup of it and use this backup whenever you start it. I'm going to use the same concept of this by launching a Jenkins container. You can also start Jenkins in a container. How is that possible? If you go to Docker Hub, like you have Nginx, you have Jenkins images. See, so many Jenkins official images available. You don't need to just you don't need to sorry, I lost the page. Yeah, you don't need to just install it directly on the server. You can start it from the container as well. Okay, so let us do that. This is the image I'm going to use, Jenkins / Jenkins. Okay, so now before doing this, because it needs backup and all, just let me clear off everything. Docker rm -f c2 c3. Okay. Docker rm -f nginx rmi nginx. Just clearing of everything because our Jenkins volume needs some space. Good. Docker volume ls. You can clean up the volume. Docker volume ls. Docker volume rm volume 1. Gone. Now let's start this Jenkins. Docker run -itd -b. I want to forward it to port 999. And inside the container, it would be on 8080, right? So Jenkins /Jenkins LTS. That's a tag name I want to use. Okay, by the way, I would like to attach a volume. First, let me create a volume. Docker. If you don't need to create beforehand also, if you don't have the volume, it will create it. But anyway, Docker volume create Jenkins volume. Okay. It will be under var lib Docker volumes always. Okay. Var lib Docker volumes Jenkins volume underscore data default path. So I don't have anything because I didn't start the component. So now Docker run -itd. Give some name, let's say Jenkins 1 with a name flag. These are all optional. Okay, port forwarding 999 8080 of the container. And the image name is Jenkins /Jenkins LTS. Where is the volume? Attach the volume as well. -v. Volume name is Jenkins underscore volume. But what is the path inside the Jenkins? To which path inside the container I should map this?
Var lib Jenkins.
That is in the when you install directly. So how it works, you have to see here. Actually, this is the one I'm using, Jenkins /Jenkins LTS. And if you just scroll down, you have to read this. You should make a habit of reading how this image was made. This was made in such a way that they were having that home directory in this path, where Jenkins home inside the. Do you see the same example? So let's put that here. Okay, that's the path inside the container. It's pulling and it should be started. We are anyway in the volume. I can see what all the data it has back there.
Var Jenkins Homes. This is
Huh?
a path of the container, right?
Path inside the container, yes. So
And
first,
we are mapping that with host volume gen underscore value.
yeah.
Right?
So container is running. Let's go inside Docker exec -it. Container name bin bash. Okay, I got the shell. You should go to what is that? Var Jenkins. See, you have all of this data that should be available on the backup. Okay, let me just come out of this container, or else let me open another shell. Let it be another terminal. And do you see the same data here? Right? This is the container. I'm inside the container. Inside the container, I have this data. On the host machine, I do have the same. Okay, first let us try to access it. Which port it was running? 999. Okay, let's go. Already 999 is added in the security groups. Here, some time back, I was forwarding this. I should see Jenkins now. Yeah, do you see that? Yeah. And it's asking, do you remember for the first time it will ask for unlock password? It will be locked and you have to unlock it. The unlock password is you are in this machine, in this path, it will be under, you can also get directly from the volume secrets. Here it is actually. Right? You can get that. No such file or directory. I'm actually in the same path. So I can do cat initial admin password. This is the path inside the, so that's where it is. Or else if you want, you can check from here as well. Right from the Jenkins. This is the workspace. Right? Understood? What I'm doing, understood? I'm checking inside the container as well as on the host because I have all that data. Okay, see, same, like you can install the plugins. It will take a while. And if you can see here, I'm inside this container. This is inside the container, right? If you go to plugins, you can see here all the plugins. Right? You can see the number of plugins as 21. Here also the same thing would happen. See, plugins are installed. This folder gets updated. Here also you can see the same on the host plugin directory. Right? Am I making sense? See, two places I'm checking. This is on the host machine where I had a backup. This is directly inside the container. I'm just showing you both the places updates are happening. Right, 61. The same thing you would see here. Right, by now it came 69. Here also there should be 69 by now, or 75. Do you see that like update is happening both in the Jenkins container as well as on the backup? So yeah, it should be done in a couple of minutes. This is the practical use case of how volumes are used. Okay, start using Jenkins, let's say. Okay, so you may create some jobs here. I have created some user, everything like you install Jenkins the same way. Okay, I'm not running any job. I created some job. Let me create one more job. Okay, some couple of jobs were created, plugins were installed, fine, and you would see everything here, all the plugins installed here, and if you go to jobs folder, yeah, you will see those jobs, right? Okay, fine. This is inside the container, and obviously you have that data here. What I'll do, I'm just coming out of this container. I would also like to remove this container. I'm force removing. It's a Gen 1, right? That's the name I have given. Gone. I don't have the container. Docker PS, I don't have it. But volume is there, volume data is there. Now my Jenkins container is gone, but I still want to start the container with the same data, right? That's a backup. I just want to start my container with the same data. So how do you do that? The same content, the same command. See, actually, I don't say anything here. Okay. Let's suppose just to see the difference clearly, I just want to give a name as Jenkins 2 because like containers might be going up, but I just want to start from the same data, isn't it? That's the purpose of backup. So I would use the same volume. Everything is same now. I changed the container name. Yeah, I changed the container name, the port, and the same volume I would like to attach. So if I start a new container on 9001, I should see it with all this data. Let me show you. Okay, it was started. You can see it on 9001. Let's add that port in the security rules. Nine thousand one. The rules. So I could access it. See, it's not asking me to create the user. Did you notice? Also, it doesn't act like a new one. It doesn't ask me to install the plugins, to create jobs were there, users were there, plugins were there, right? That's how you use volumes to restore the backup and start new containers. Understood, everyone? Is this much clear for all? This is the real use case of volumes.
Okay, but one doubt, if every time we are launching new container, so container ID will be different.
Yeah, it will be different. Container ID will be
Like
different, name will be different, IP will be different. What do we have to do with them? Did we anywhere use that IP or ID or name?
no.
So the thing is, we never dependent on individual containers. Means we don't depend on container IDs, names, IP address to access something. Right? This is how we access it. We port forward to the host machine and access it from the host. It is irrelevant to me. The IDs, IPs means those are for your, like if you want to connect and do something, you can do that. But we don't use it to access the application or we don't rely on those things.
No, so like when we are receiving any request from some application team to restart the container, so they are providing the container ID.
They will not provide
Uh,
it. You have to check which container you have to start.
Sometime back, I was checking the similar issue.
Mm.
So the container was restarting very frequently. Was container ID was same. Container ID was not changing.
It is restarting. You are talking about restarting. Restart is different
Yes,
from
restarting.
creating new container. Here I created new container. When you restart, it doesn't change. That's why yesterday we learned the commands, right? Like Docker restart. What is that? Docker start. If it is stopped, this is how you restart, right? With the container name
Hmm.
or container ID. That is different.
Okay, so
Docker start is different from Docker run. I'm talking about Docker run. Whenever you create new container, yes, it will be created with new ID.
Okay. Like Google Cloud, we can reserve the IP, right?
Like,
For
mm,
some particular VM, we can reserve the IP. So if we are spinning the VM, so IP will not change. External IP. So like the same, we can reserve the container ID or IPA. It's
see,
possible.
first, don't get confused with container IP and the host IP. These are the container IDs, container IPs. Okay, container IPs you check with Docker container inspect. Those are the container details. Host details
Okay.
means here your EC2 instance details. This IP is different. Okay, this is private IP, public IP. This is different from container IP. Don't mix up both. Right? Now, coming to your question, container, we never depend on container IP. Some time back, I have checked the container IP, hit that on port 80. That is to show you it's running inside. In real time, we never dependent on container IPs. Remember, container IPs, because containers are not permanent. They keep on coming up each time they spin up, new IP will be assigned. We'll never dependent on it. Okay, we don't need to resolve them because, like I said, you don't depend on individual container IPs. No. Now, coming to the second part, you forwarded to this and you are accessing it from here. Then your host machine, if it is EC2 or if it is instance on Google Cloud, it will have a public IP and private IP. Public IP will be like a keep on changing whenever you restart your VM. Private IP will be
Yes.
fixed. It doesn't make any difference if it is changing or if it is not changing. Your private IP will not change. That is fixed. Okay, means the machine is same. This will keep on changing. If you want this also to be static, you have to go for elastic IPs. Here you see elastic IP. You have to assign that elastic IP to your instance whenever you create it. Elastic IPs are costly. So we don't do that. But yeah, they can assign elastic IP so that IP will be fixed. If you have this IP changing also, no problem for our case. But if you want, you can put elastic IP. That's the second thing. Another thing, if you want to, like you are seeing this way, but you want to put some host name here, yeah, that is possible through many other concepts. That's a totally different story. Whether you want to put it on some host name, you can change the host name, or else here also you have a DNS name, public DNS. It's like host name. You may use it. Or else if you want your own host names, yeah, you can also do that. That is a different story that you generally do with the container orchestration. For standalone containers, actually, you will never expose or access application this way of port forwarding. This is not the complete or the approach you use in reality. We deploy or expose it through the Kubernetes cluster. But to understand this, you should understand this basic port forwarding. That's why I have to teach these things. This is not the final thing. Okay, you have many modifications coming up about this. But for now, yes, this is it.
Okay.
Any more queries?
Yeah, Preeti, is it possible to access website from using container IP from outside?
Not possible. Containers are running in a private secure network which are confined inside the host. Outside you can't. That's why they are secure, right? That's how they are secure.
So always we have to do the port forwarding. We have deploy multiple applications in the single container. So we have to do the port forwarding from then only we can access from outside.
Yes. Yes. But you don't have a 10 applications in a single container. But yeah, if you want to say
Yeah,
that,
very small application, one or two will hosted it.
yes.
Just two. So one more question, Preeti, how to customize the containers? Like I don't want to use from the contents from the container hub. I want to I need to create my own application and I have the own server. So is it possible to create a container that customization, container customization?
That's called creating your own images. Okay, you create your own images and you want to use your own images. Yeah, that's where you talk about creating your own enterprise applications. I mean, containerize your applications. Next topic. That's our next topic.
Thank you.
Any more?
Is it possible to port forward it to 443 and access using HTTPS?
If you want to do HTTPS, you should enable HTTPS first. Then you have to do that. HTTPS authentication should be done on the Jenkins configurations. Then you can.
Okay, if we directly port forward to 443, it won't work.
Mhm.
Okay.
So then we have creating our own images. Okay. Creating our own images, containerizing our address book, and all these things coming up. So be prepared for all of those. We'll not be having session from tomorrow. Thursday and Friday, I'm not available. We'll be having our next session on Monday. Meanwhile, utilize this time to do the hands-on. See, I understand you have many questions related to port forwarding and all, because like I said, right, this is not the end. This is the basic part you should know. And we never forward each individual containers this way. You will forward it in a different way when you deploy in the orchestration tool. So majority of your questions will be answered and covered there. So meanwhile, you have to practice these things. You should understand this before you put it on HTTPS or before you put it on multiple applications, before you talk about that. Practice all of these things so that all those things will be covered in the actual deployment, the way you deploy on Kubernetes cluster, right? But this is the basic concept for all of that. So do complete practice, go through the quiz, complete your quiz assignments on the website, utilize this time and be ready for the session on Monday. Any more questions you have?
I have one doubt from Jenkins side.
Tell me.
Like Jenkins, one option is there, run the job with the parameter in input.
Parameters, you pass a parameter
Yes.
to your Jenkins.
Mhm.
Like you can pass some values during the runtime. We'll see that, okay? We'll look into that in the next class.
Okay.
It's nothing but you may pass some values like you want to pass some environment name, you want to pass some test case ID, or you want to pass whether test case are true or false. Any values if you want to pass, you'll use it. That's a parameter builds.
Yeah, like I saw the DRE team, they are selecting the data center name, product name, and like with help of the parameter.
Yeah, you can pass the parameters during runtime. We'll see that in the next sessions, okay? We'll
Oh.
also see manual approval in the pipeline. There I'll show you this parameter. Any more queries from anyone?
Preeti, you discussed about Docker containers being secure, right?
Yeah.
So, how is it maintained? Because in VPC and all, we have this firewall and all these things, right?
Okay, this is not about the VPC networking and all. Containers will be having its own network. Okay, containers use their own network, that too default network, which is a bridge network. Automatically, containers uses that network. So containers when launched, they will be in the bridge network. Bridge network means a separate private isolated network. You can't access anything from outside when containers are in that network. You don't have anything with this VPC and all for that. Whenever you install Docker engine, this network is created by default, and whenever you start containers, they go into this network.
Okay.
But if you want to customize your networks, like when you are running, you are running Docker on-prem, if you want to customize your network, then yeah, networking team will be there. They will configure the IP address and all. And again, you have to choose that network when you are running container. Otherwise, by default, it goes to bridge only. Maybe
They create
once
a
I
separate
start
system.
Docker in the next sessions, I'll show you those networks. Tell me.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, you told customized networks. So yeah, probably in the next session, I'll also have a look. How do they
Yeah,
do the
custom
customization?
network we can't create here. Networking team will be there, separate team, because it needs so many things, data cards, IP address, routing, so many things will be taken care by. They will just provide you the network address range. There is a network flag you can use, like Docker run -v, you have minus network, where you put that network available in that, like in that particular section.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
I can show you the networks, default networks, whichever it is there and your container is running, and that I can show you in the next class.
Thank you, Preethi. No questions from my side.
All right. All right, then. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day, and yeah, do your hands-on and see you on Monday. Thank you all. Bye, everyone.
Okay.